Evening, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to welcome those of you here at the Slyman Theater in downtown New Iberia to our forum for candidates seeking the office Iberia Parish Sheriff. My name is David O, and I'll be a moderator for tonight's forum. We want to recognize some sponsors that made this event happen. First of all, we want to thank the Greater Iberia Chamber of Commerce, Iberia Comprehensive Community Health Center, and Leadership Iberia, which I'm proud to say I'm a part of this year's class 21, and also our timekeepers, Mr. Dusty Hewlin. He's also part of class 21, and Miss Jade, part of class of 21 also. There are some few announcements before we begin tonight's event. Our sponsor wish to remind you that tonight's program is purely informational. Neither the Chamber, Iberia Comprehensive Community Health Center, nor the Leadership Iberia program endorses any particular candidate running for office. Just a reminder also, the last day to register to vote for the October 12th primary election is September 11th. And if you're like me who likes to early vote will begin on September 28th and end on October 5th. And of course, the election will be on October 12th. Also, the Chamber is posting all the forms to their YouTube channel. So you can go to youtube.com/goodnewsiberia and to the Chamber's Facebook page, Iberia Chamber. A couple of reminders, ladies and gentlemen. If you would please pull out your cell phones right now and put them on silent. As you can imagine, it can be a little difficult when the cell phones are going off when the candidates are trying to get their answers and when they're speaking during tonight's event. But also, we want to respect the audience. And also, to the audience members, if you could move to the center of the seat, if you could move to the center of your row, please, to make room for those who are standing. And we have some seats up front here. I think they're kind of taken. But yeah, so we have a little bit of seats up front also. And finally, we want to say a special thank you to the city of New Iberia for allowing the use of the Slyman Theater for this event, and also On the Tap organization for the use of the audio equipment that we're using tonight. So at this time, I would like to introduce the candidates. All candidates in this race were invited to participate. Those in the audience tonight are Ms. Roberta Boudreaux, Joe LeBlanc, Furnace Pac-Man Martin, Murphy Myers, Mr. Tommy Romero, and that's all that's here tonight. But also this evening, I want to explain the time limits and format for our candidates and for our audience. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for an opening statement. We will then ask a series of questions which each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer, unless otherwise noted. Candidates will be given 60 seconds for your closing statements. To assist the candidates in keeping time, Mr. Dusty and also Ms. Jade they'll be our official timekeeper for this evening, and we'll have a timing light situated down front. So candidates, when your time begins, the green light will come on, as so. When you have 15 seconds left, the yellow light will come on. So this is your 15-second warning. And when your time is up, the red light will come on. And at this time, you must finish your sentence. If your sentence takes more than a few seconds, a buzzer will sound to let you know that you must stop. So we'll all know what to expect. Let's try out the buzzer. Maestro? Due to the limits of time and to maintain a fair atmosphere, we ask that the audience hold any applause or other comments. So you guys are probably asking, where did the questions come from? It's a great question. It just tells you we have an intelligent group here tonight. All the questions I will ask tonight were predetermined. Questions were solicited from the public, like those that's here tonight. And then an unbiased committee reviewed the questions submitted and came up with those that are to be asked tonight. All questions have been kept in strict confidence. No one except the committee members and myself have seen them. So at this time, we will start opening statements. Earlier, we drew for the starting order. So we will start with Mr. Murphy Myers and continue to left to right. So candidates, after Mr. Murphy would get done, we'll go to Pac-Man and so on. The closing remarks will begin in reverse order of the opening. So whoever's the last one to speak, that person will start the closing remark. C'est bon? All right. So, Mr. Murphy Myers, please begin your opening comment.
Thank you. I'm Murphy Myers. I'm 66 years old, and I'm a native Iberian. I was born, raised, and educated right here in New Iberia. I graduated from New Iberia Senior High in 1971. I graduated from Northeast Louisiana University now known as ULM in Monroe, in 1975 with a BS degree. I came back after school, moved back to my hometown, and I was first employed in law enforcement in January 1978 by the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office. I continued that employment with Sheriff Jerry Watney and Sheriff Romero until July of 1996. At that time, I chose to move over to Louisiana State Police. I maintained employment with them until February of this year, providing 22 years of service. During my time with the Sheriff's Office, I served the majority of it on uniform patrol. When I went to the state police, I spent 19 of my 22 years on uniform patrol. I worked Troop I. They got me.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Pac-Man?
I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for putting on such an event. My name is Furnace Pac-Man Martin. I'm a 26-year veteran in law enforcement. Most of my career, I served as a lieutenant in Criminal Patrol Division and narcotics. The last 12 years, I've been the General City Marshal. In the last year and a half, I've served also as the interim chief of General Police Department. I come to you with a background from College of Eastern Utah, where I played college football, and later transferred to McNeese State University, where I continue my education. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe Leblanc, candidate for Iberia Parish Sheriff. As y'all all know, this is my 7th time trying for sheriff. And one thing about it, Joe's not a quitter, okay? I worked for the best sheriff this parish ever had, was Mr. Romero. Through that, I have a background in detectives, narcotics. I was with a Tri-Parish Drug Task Force underneath Mr. Phil Haney. And I also was a cross agent with U.S. Customs Blue Lightning Drug Task Force. And through that, I work with youth and people in the community to make things better for our parish, because I love our parish. As you can see, you can tell I do, because who else would run 7 times? You know, people say I'm crazy, might be. Never know with Joe, you know? But I want to thank y'all for inviting us here tonight and getting a little bit of our background. And when you're choosing your candidate,
Thank you, Mr. Joe. Miss Roberta?
Hi, I'm Roberta Boudreaux. I'm a candidate for sheriff. I want to thank the Chamber, Iberia Comp, and Leadership Iberia for putting this function on. I think it's important that we have things like this so the voters can be informed of who the candidates are and what their credentials are. I'm a native of Iberia Parish for 53 years. I've been married for 29 years to my husband, Jimmy. We live in Lydia, and we have 1 daughter. I've been involved in community service since the age of 15 years old in the ballpark, helping kids, because I think that's our future. I think with guidance with adults, taking them under their wing and showing them the proper things in life, we get them on a good path. When I graduated high school with NISH, I went to Northeast Louisiana University, just like Murphy, now known as ULM. I have a BA in criminal justice and a minor in psychology. At the time when I graduated, my studies were geared toward juvenile. They were building the prison here, so I was lucky enough to get on in an entry-level position.
Thank you, Miss Roberta. Mr. Tommy?
Hi, good evening. My name is Tommy Romero. First of all, I'd like to thank our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for giving me the opportunity, for blessing us all. Second, I would like to thank my wife and family for their support. I'd like to thank the Chamber for putting on the event, the candidates for showing up, and for you all participating. It means a lot in the electoral process. First off, I am 61 years old, born in 1958, graduated from high school in 1976. Tommy Romero always wanted to serve as a law enforcement officer. I attended USL at the time and went to USL for criminal justice. It was a 2-year course. 1978, I'm yellow already. 1978, I was with the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office at Louisiana State Police and the Attorney General's office. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Tommy. Yeah, you guys, those lights will get you, so you got to watch out. So thank you for your opening comments. We'll start with the questioning. So Mr. Tommy, you'll go first. So the first question, and by the way, I do apologize. I went right to left. So, and the question wise, we'll go left to right to your candidates, left to right. So we'll start with you, Mr. Tommy. With so many candidates pursuing the sheriff's office, how would your education, experience, and other aspect of your background make you a better qualified?
Good question. I can give you some of my background a little bit more definite now. I was with Louisiana State Police. I have 15 years of narcotics investigation under my belt. Main issue in Iberia Parish is the crime rate. All that crime comes back to one common denominator that we all know is the drug issue. We have an opioid issue as well. I think it's imperative that the sheriff have experience when it comes to dealing with the narcotics problem that your area suffers from. When we have a drug problem like we do, high crime rate occurs. Businesses do not want to move to Iberia. They don't want to stay. We have an outward migration of people. And when we have all that, the tax base is lower. So I would like for the Sheriff's Department to move forward in the right direction by providing the department with an analyst that would help us drive the crime rate down. It's called intelligence-led policing. When you have intelligence-led policing, it moves the police department from being a reactive police department, moves it to a proactive and predictive police department. We're able to predict crime, get units in the right positions to fight crime. We can fight crime more efficient that way. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Tommy.
All right.
Ms. Roberta?
I think what sets me apart from, I'm not running against these guys, but I think what sets me apart from them is the fact that I've managed a $7-8 million budget when I ran the prison, and I supervised over 100 staff members, 700 inmates, and I ran 2 facilities at the time. In my current position with Vermilion Parish Police Jury, I manage a $2.5 million budget. And the purpose of my position is to save the taxpayers' money. There's no secret that every dollar that comes in tax base is something that we should be very frugal with, be cognizant of where it comes from, and we spend it wisely. I think it's important that people understand that whoever is sheriff needs to be a leader of people and a manager of a budget. The sheriff's department is not only a criminal sheriff, he is also a civil sheriff. And having said that, they're responsible for tax collections, sales and seizures. It's way bigger than just patrol. I'm not saying patrol is not important because it is an integral part of what goes on. But the bottom line is if you don't have the finances and the budget maintained and in good standing order, you can't provide the services required by the parish and what the citizens deserve.
Thank you, Ms. Roberta. Mr. LeBlanc?
What makes me qualified to run the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office is I already have a business that I do run, so I do know how to manage money. But also, you look at my work in the community, where I go out and meet and greet people and help others. Rather it be like I told y'all earlier, enter organizations of St. Francis Donna Council on Aging, United Way, SNAP, and many local churches. Well, you need a community person, not just law enforcement experience, because that means a lot. Because if you notice, our last 2 administrations, and a lot of people don't like to say this, but the truth hurts sometimes. We lost people policing because we have people out there in the community that are eyes and ears to that sheriff's department. We got to get back into the deal of talking to people. Find out what's going on in their neighborhood, working with the youth, keep them away from the drug dealers, give them something to do. And to do that, you have to be a people person as well as a law enforcement experience. And I do have law enforcement experience, both in criminal and narcotic investigation.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martin?
Thank you. It is very simple why I think I should run for this office. I am the only elected official that has head a law enforcement entity sitting at this table. I've had the opportunity to deal with budgets, I had the opportunity to deal with civil matters, dealing with garnishments. I've had the opportunity to come up there and deal with employees, whether terminate them or finding where they can best be utilized in our department. You can't question that. And the bottom line is, if we looking for the right guy to head the Iberia Parish Sheriff Department, and if you say experience matters, then I'm your guy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Meyer?
I think what sets me apart from the other candidates for a sheriff is the career path I chose. Although the majority of my time was spent on uniform patrol, I didn't simply get in the car and ride around all day. At the time I was with the sheriff's office, I started as a patrolman, and when I left, I had been head of the Uniform Patrol Division, Water Patrol, and a Reserve Division for 11 and a half years. During that time, although I maintained a shift and patrolled with my people, I was also responsible for the operations of those 3 units. I had a budget to manage. The budget I had to manage was finite. You have so many dollars, get the job done. Although it's true that if you don't have the dollars, it's difficult to get the job done, it can be. You have to sit back and think out the box. You have to adjust shifts. You have to adjust your personnel. You have to adjust the times that they work and have people on the road at the time that they need to be on the road. We did that, and we maintained the budget that we had. I also wrote grants and then administered the programs that the grants funded. Back in the middle to late 80s, we operated a DWI patrol here in Iberia Parish that was funded by the Highway Safety Commission. After a 3-year stint, we had reduced the number of alcohol-related injury and fatality crashes in this parish by about 40%. At the same time, is that light got me?
So thank you for the answers for the first question. So we're going to move on to the second question. Ms. Roberta, you'll start with this one. What are the 3 biggest issues facing the Sheriff's Department in the next 4 years? And give us a brief example of how you plan to address each.
I think the 3 biggest challenges facing the sheriff, the incoming sheriff, is going to be a budget. I'm not going to cast stones, but we've expensed a lot of money out on civil litigation and settlements and lawsuits. So we definitely have an insurer issue as far as the department goes. Obviously, deputy retention would be number 2. We need to find a way to retain our officers, pay them a good salary for them to stay so they can get familiar with the community and the community can get familiar with them. The only way to have a balance and make this parish move forward and build a gap that's obviously between the citizens and the police department, the sheriff's department, is to retain officers where we become known to each other. Lastly, I want to bring work release back. I think it's important that we stop the vicious cycle of just letting these inmates out of the prison day in and day out. If you don't give them something worthy to walk out with, then they're going to come back. There's tax incentives for businesses to employ felons through a work release program. I think it's important we have that. I don't think that every criminal should be locked up and just stored away in a cell somewhere. Some of these guys are first offenders. Some of them are nonviolent offenders, and we need to regulate that a little bit better.
Thank you, Ms. Roberta. Mr. Joe?
Yes. Again, one of mine is community policing. We need more policing that's going to talk to people. We need to take our budget and like into the jail, when it was built for 250 inmates. We need to get with the council because today they got 585 inmates in a 250-bed jail. But also, we have a trade school within that jail that we could teach prisoners how to weld, how to do mechanic work, how to do refrigeration work, so that way when they do get back on the street, they won't look at stealing and hurting the elderly. And our budget, yes, is way up there, but we got a lot of them that's on budget that just got their shoes up on a desk. We want workers. Joe want workers that's gonna get out there and work for the people, not have the people work for the sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martin?
Again, we can all talk about the budget because we know, that's where it starts. And I totally agree with that. But I think, one, we have to, respect the fact that we have to go out there and hire the right type of people. We sitting up there, and it starts with the employment process for me. We sit up there, and we often sit up there and we hire folks, and we know after Matrix, they don't even deserve to be in law enforcement, but we just want to fill a spot. And because we fill a spot, one, we get a higher turnover rate. Two, we get the lawsuits that we get. I'm a witness of that. So therefore, I think we start there. Second, I agree. You know what? We have a great turnover rate of people returning back to jail. We have to set up programs. I was watching the news today where, Lafayette Police with the Louisiana Community College just had several inmates graduate in welding. We need to, put those type of programs to work and utilize those things. And finally, for me, we have to find a way to compensate our employees. We are losing employees for $1 more to other agencies outside the parish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Myers?
I think the three greatest challenges for the next sheriff is going to be a reduction in crime, management of the jail, and also the budget. I plan to reduce crime by increasing patrol. Tonight, we operate with the same number of deputies in the same number of patrol sections that I operated with in 1976. It's not working. It's not working. We've had a change in demographics. Places that used to go ride in the country for a mile before you saw a car are now filled with subdivisions. Along with expanding patrol, I plan on increasing training for our deputies. We're going to go to a monthly sort of training program and not 2.5 days every year. That's simply not enough. For the jail, we need to manage it better. We need to reduce that population. Tonight, we incarcerate about 420 people in a jail that was one time certified by a federal judge to hold only 256 people. That's too many inmates, and at the same time, we operate a jail shift with the same 9 deputies that we did when we incarcerated 256 people. You don't have enough personnel to properly manage the jail where you can move people like you need. I'm also in favor of educational programs at the jail. Let's teach them a trade. Let's reduce our recidivism rate. And let's try and turn back into the street an individual who realizes that time spent in the parish jail is not where he or his family needs for him to be. With the budget, we need to...
Thank you, Mr. Myers. And Mr. Tommy?
I think the main problems that are going to face the sheriff's department in the next 4 years is going to be crime. It's imperative that we move forward, stop dwelling in the past, looking in the rearview mirror. We need to remember where we've come from, but we need to make sure that we move forward. I think moving forward, the future's here, technology's here. We have a limited budget, $14.1 million budget in the sheriff's office. We've gone from 332 employees to 177. It's important that we retain our investment. You're the taxpayer. You invested money in the sheriff's department. It's important that we retain the deputies, because let me tell you something. It costs a lot of money to train one deputy to put him on the road. We got to equip the guy. We got to buy a patrol car. We have to send him to school. We got to pay him a salary. The base salary is $30,500. The total cost to put the guy on the road, turnkey, is $75,000 for one guy. So it's important that we maintain these people. We need to try to get their salary increased so we can draw some better people, keep our people here. And then to offer some more training, it would be a good thing. It would help cut liability issues that happen. There's a lot of liability issues at the jail in itself. So we need to address those problems. The least amount of contact the correction officer has with an inmate.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Many of you have expressed the issues with our operation of the jail. So, Mr. Joe, we're going to start this question with you. The operation of the jail is a big expense for the parish government. How do you propose to improve operations to be more cost effective?
Well, you can do that by the way the previous administration that I worked for done. You can grow your own vegetables out there and put that into the jail, as well as your meat and stuff. They can have a cattle and stuff, so you can cut your costs there. Because right now, to pay the bill at the jail that was built in 1990, you would have to, it houses federal inmates at $45 a day, state inmates at $35 a day, city inmates at $8.50. They have to pay the bill on the jail. Is it doing Iberia Parish any good? No. It was better off if they would privatize the jail to a private organization and let the parish government foot the bill to pay at that private organization. That's the only way you're going to affect the cost of operating of that jail is by growing your own garden as well as your own beef and everything and your own cooks and everything. They lost all of that. They don't have that anymore. They don't do their own cooking anymore. All they do is eat sandwiches. You know, there are human beings in that. They might have did something wrong, but you're not Jesus. You're not there to judge them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martin?
Well, for me, it's simple. I think about the jail and I think about this. The average inmate for us in the parish, we get $2 and some change. Once to the state prisoner, we get $25. But one of the biggest concerns for me, I've always said we need to speed up the process of getting these guys prosecuted and what have you. And you say, what do you mean? Listen, we'll hold a guy in jail for 6 months, taking care of him, but yet the crime is a 30-day sentence. Look how much money we are spending. So why not just issue him a summons and release him, especially if it's a nonviolent crime? That's one way we can cut the cost. That is the one way we can cut the cost, ladies and gentlemen. We sit up there and we and I think about it, like he said, in regards to how much we getting. I don't know what other way we can cut the cost, but hurry up and speed up the process, get along with the DA. If we got to find some way to save some money for them to hire some more DA officers to speed up the process, we save money on the back end, then we need to do just that. But we got one guy in the jail right now, been in there for over a year, and he keep sitting up there firing his attorneys on our dime. But yet, by the time he go to court, he's going to have time served. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. The operation of the jail is a big expense for the parish government. How do you propose to improve operations to be more cost effective?
Being cost effective at the parish jail is not a singular term. It's going to involve how we move our people, how we release our people, and what those people are ready for whenever we do get them out. Furness is absolutely correct. There are some people that sit in the jail behind nonviolent misdemeanor crime for months on end before they decide to move them. When they decide to move them out to jail, they run them en masse in front of the district court. They have a judge give them credit for time served, and they release them. One method to cut the costs is to let's add to our bond schedule where an individual for a nonviolent misdemeanor crime has served X number of days, whatever the judiciary terms or decides is normal. At his time of service of those days, let's bring him in front of the court, have a judicial review, and see if we can ROR him. He's not free. He's still got to come back to court. We're just trading days for dollars when it comes to bond. Also, with the jail, we have a number of lawsuits that are generated in the jail. Some of those lawsuits can directly be related to the number of inmates that we have incarcerated over there. You can't put 400 and something people into a jail designed to hold 256 and expect there not to be conflict, expect there not to be problems, and expect that you're not going to be sued whenever such incidents occur. Got me again.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Mr. Romero?
Okay, I think to help parish government with the cost of running the jail, it would be real nice for us to get the work release program brought back where we can have the people that are doing their last 6 months of the sentence out on work release. The problem we're gonna have with that issue is the fact that there's no jobs to bring these people to. If we do locate a job, it costs a lot of money to get that individual to the job site. So it's imperative, we need to try to get businesses back to the community where we can set up some, or try to work with private business and guarantee that we can get some individuals some type of work program. And we can get them plugged in as long as it's close by and nearby. The least amount of activity or physical contact we have with inmates in the moving process or housing them or transporting them, that's a liability issue if we get in a confrontation with one of them. So the least amount of physical contact we have with some of these inmates, it'll drive some of the liability issue down. Now, I'm just about to stop right here. I'm catching with the light myself.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. And finally, Ms. Roberta.
I'm going to say that I know since I left as warden, I know the costs have escalated for the parish government, as well as the sheriff's department, as it relates to the jail. I don't think anybody else up here has the experience that I have when it comes to managing the jail and the budget. The position I hold in Vermilion Parish was created for me, specifically to save the parish money. The first year I was there, I saved them $450,000. There's lots of ways to cut costs there. Go back to what I started with when I opened up and I said that every tax dollar comes from every one of us in this room, and we need to be frugal with that money. There's other programs that can come in instead of just work release. There's transitional work release, there's reentry, there's day reporting for some of these nonviolent offenders. I know that the society worries about who you're kicking out of there as far as criminals who repeat offenders. But again, I go back to, if you just continue to cycle them in and out without any kind of skilled labor or some incentive in GED. We don't even have a GED program in our jail, which is, I can't even fathom that, because it doesn't cost a thing to have it. It's a scheduling deal. The school board provides it. We have just really turned that place into just a housing facility and a babysitting service. And it's a very disservice to everyone who goes there, their family, whatever. I'm not a proponent of crime.
Thank you, Ms. Roberta. Once again, audience, if you would please check your cell phones and make sure it's on silent. To start the next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Martin. What plans do you have for officer training, continual education, and professional development?
Well, first thing, and if anyone heard me, I'm a strong believer in officer training. One of them, my biggest thing is public relations. I think our officers need to learn how to deal with the public. I think we need to be trained in such a manner. But I also would be the first to tell you, I think we ought to issue some training to the public and teach them how to deal with law enforcement. You know, we look at the TV, and I'm being honest, we see all this, and we like, when the media grabs a hold of the police, look like the bad guy. But we're trained to deal with things a certain way and in a certain manner. And how you do that, I propose to take advantage of all the classes, whether it's in Meridian, where they offer free classes, to come up there to train our officers and look at, the areas where we strongly need the training, whether it's public relations, whether it's, it's defensive tactics and all that other good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Myers?
Whenever I served at the sheriff's office, I also had a hand in training. Our main training officer at that time was John Teradot. And although he did us a good job, it was almost impossible to do it alone. We operated on a system that rotated on a 15 to 16 month basis. We trained 4 hours to 6 hours every month. And the reason we rotated on a 15 to 16 month basis was because we simply could not cover all of the subjects that we needed and wanted to cover within a year of 12 months. I'd like to go back to that type of training system. Next year, from what I understand, the Post Council is going to include in your standards and training that you're instructed in dealing with handicapped individuals and individuals that just are having a hard time communicating with the police. That's one of the subjects we used to cover 22 years ago. You know, training is very important. We also need to make as much use as possible of the free training that's available to us in such places as Meridian, Mississippi, and over in Georgia at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. It's just not right that we can send deputies to a free training period, and all it costs is gas to get them there and gas to get them back, yet we deny them the opportunity to take that training. My intention is to use as much as we can on the free federal level of training, and it's called Train the Trainer. Have him learn and come back in.
Thank you, sir.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Absolutely, Mr. Romero. What plans do you? I'm sorry. Yeah, let me read it again. What plans do you have? What plans do you have for officer training, continual education, and professional development?
Well, the training part, it's always best to, the more training you have, the more professional you're going to be. Some of the training that we need to focus on is sensitivity training and diversity training. Now, that requires every police officer that's going to work in my department, whether they answer the phone, whether they're on the road, whether they're correctional officers or not. I think it's imperative that we have that training to them, make sure that they complete the courses. We have a lot of free online courses that we can do as well. Meridian is a great school. I've been there several times. It's a free school. There's no reason why we shouldn't be utilizing that, just giving the deputies opportunity. The more professional we get, the better off we're going to be. Now, having said that, I think it's imperative that the people that the police officer comes in contact with understand why police officers do what they do, why we park our car a certain way, why we make a stop and ask you to get out, why we want you to stand in this part of the highway, why we want you to keep your hands out your pocket. I think if we can teach the general public, invite them in so that they can see what the police officer goes through, I think communications amongst the police officer and the community will improve. So I think it's important.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Ms. Roberta?
I have a plan to implement a staff member who's going to implement professional standards. I think it's important that we have professional standards in the department. Not only just have them on paper, but they need to be applied and monitored. Sensitivity training is obviously top of the list. You can't go in certain sections of the parish and talk to people any kind of way. You have to realize what culture you're in and adjust. Verbal judo, I'm surprised no one up here mentioned it. The best tool we have is right here. And how you approach a scene and talk to an individual is going to set the tone. Realize that when we go to calls, that the officer's adrenaline is running, whoever called them, their adrenaline is running. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that we basically walking up to an unknown, but we control the scene. We are supposed to maintain a cool and in control. The moment we lose that, we lose the scene. One of the ways I plan to keep track of that is quality control. In the business world, they have quality control in almost every company you deal with today. It's important that we follow up on calls so that we can catch problems with problem officers. If you calling back 2 or 3 days after a call's been called in for service, and this deputy continues to be a problem after 2 or 3 cycles, guess what? It's probably not the public that's the problem, it's probably the deputy. So we need to pull that person in and try to fix this problem.
Thank you, Ms. Roberta. And Mr. Joe?
Yes, I'm gonna echo a lot what was said up here tonight because we worked together for a certain sheriff before. Training is the #1 issue in any law enforcement. Because if you go to diffuse a situation and you have more anger in your body, then you're not gonna diffuse it. You're gonna escalate it. And we don't need that. You need officers that's gonna respect the public. Just like They want to be respected, the law officers. The public wants to be respected. They don't want to have to be shoved on a car because he had a bad day. And yes, we had different schoolings that we went to, and there are some out there, but we also need to put, like when I was in detectives, when they ordered us to call our agents, case agents, every Friday before we leave the office to give them an update. Well, we could have just signed the book and say, yeah, well, we call. But guess what? They had somebody else calling behind us to make sure that we call. So do the same thing with your deputies. If a deputy goes on a call, have a sergeant or lieutenant go behind him and see how it went. And then you can ask.
Thank you, sir. The next question will start with Mr. Murphy. How do you propose fostering positive relationships with the municipal law enforcement entities throughout the parish?
You know, in 40 years, I can't ever recall an incident where the boots on the ground didn't get along with each other. Generally, whenever you have problems between agencies, it starts near the top. Maybe not at the top, but it starts near the top. I'm the kind of individual that can work with anybody. I've proved that over the years. If you speak to some of your deputies you have providing service to New Iberia and Iberia Parish today, they'll tell you when I worked for the state, it wasn't at all uncommon for me to show up if they had no backup on a call. By the same token, if they showed up on one of my crashes, I was glad to see them and made use of them in any way I could and tried to educate them as to what was going on during the time that we were working together. Probably the most important thing we can do is get the middle level supervisors from each law enforcement agency on the same sheet of music. We can do this in a number of ways. We can set up meetings on a monthly basis between parish government, city government, and the law enforcement agencies. We can provide them or invite them to our training sessions so that they can see what we have on mind, how we want our people to operate. They can issue us a similar invitation, and I guarantee you we'll go down there and participate. Was that a bell? At any rate, it's fostering cooperation between law enforcement agencies is just something that has to be addressed and needs to be addressed quickly.
Thank you, sir. Before you answer, Mr. Tommy, once again, please put your phones on silent so there won't be no distractions.
What's the question again, please?
Yes, sir. How do you propose fostering positive relationships with municipal law enforcement entities throughout Iberia Parish?
Well, the Sheriff's Department and the New Iberia City Police Department, General Police Department, Delcombe Police Department, we're all chasing the same problem. We all want to do the right thing. We want to fight crime. So we need to work together. So as the sheriff, we need to have the sheriff and the chief be speaking with each other on a daily basis, communicating with each other. Now, as far as boots on the ground, I think it goes back to this intelligence-led policing program that I'd like to start in the sheriff's department. What I'd like to do is for everybody to get involved. It requires business people, general public, police officers, police departments, businesses. We all have something in common, people. It's right there in your pocket. It's the cell phone. I don't particularly care for the cell phone. I think there's a lot of bad things that go on with a cell phone, but I think it can keep us communicating with each other. We can use that cell phone information that you plug in, send it to, I'm about out of time here, but I want to develop an Iberia Parish analytical division within the department where you can funnel any suspicious activity to the department. And we're going to go ahead and use that analyst to drive policemen to the right.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Boudreaux?
I could envision, Murphy kind of tapped on it earlier, and saying there's only 3 zones in the parish, which goes back to old days. I could envision busting that up into 6, bringing in some satellite offices or substations, if you want to call it, which will afford coverage in Louisville, Delcom, Lydia, Jeanerette. One of the things we implemented in Vermilion Parish, which has helped on the jail side, due process side, and there's a lot of dynamics that people don't understand with due process, but the sheriff's job is to execute arrests, provide an accurate report, flow it to the DA's office, and then their job is only needed once again is if it goes to trial or questions in between. But bond set by judges, but the prosecution comes from the DA's office. It's not the sheriff who arrests and release people. I think the perception is that that's what happens. One of the things we created was a criminal court committee, and every entity in Vermilion Parish played a role in that committee. We meet every 3 months. Initially, we were meeting every month. And the effort is to try to come up with ways to establish bond schedules, contempt fines, try to reduce the numbers in the jail, reduce the cost to the parish for housing prisoners, increase the due process process by having a person, which is me, oversee from the,
Thank you, Ms. Roberta. Mr. Joe.
Yes, could you repeat your question, please?
Absolutely. How do you propose fostering positive relationships with municipal law enforcement entities throughout Iberia Parish?
Well, I'm going to echo again what a lot of them said. You need to work together with other law enforcement, because whether you're with the city or you're with the sheriff's department, the taxpayer pays the bill. So if they need some help in the city, why put the burden on the city to pay the sheriff's department when they're already getting paid by taxes? And by working together, you're going to solve a lot more crime than what is being solved today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Furness?
I, like Murphy, agree in the monthly meetings with the head officials because, again, it starts with us at the top. And when people know there's tension between the agencies at the top, it filters downward. But at the same time, I think it's important with the collaboration with the officers. And people say, why is that? I'm over a component. Why can't we train together? Why can't we get together with the sheriff office and an IPD and do some training? I can tell you what, when I was the marshal in Jeanerette, and still is, we did a lot of training with the marshal's office in St. Mary and Franklin. We did a lot of training with Patterson. And it was important because you know what, when you're going out there and you're assisting these guys, they need to know what you're doing and you need to know what they're doing. But most so for me, people say, why is it important that the two of us foster a partnership? Well, let me ask you something, ladies and gentlemen. When a crime happens in the city, where do you think they're going? To the parish. To the parish. So it's important that we have a collaboration where we can talk to each other, work together. I know this. Just some 2 weeks ago, we had an armed robbery right here in New Iberia. NIPD called my phone. They gave me a nickname. I told them exactly who the guy was. In 45 minutes, a warrant was issued for his arrest. That's why it's important that we foster a partnership with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question will start with Mr. Tommy. What is your position on using trustee labor to provide needed community services, and at what cost?
At what cost? Okay. I think we should make sure that when we use, I'm all for using inmate labor to help cut costs, pick up debris on the side. We just had the storm pass through. I think that the sheriff's office should be able to use some of the inmates that are not a threat, inmates that we can use, trustees that we can use to get out there and pick up a litter, help move debris from ditches, kind of help anything that we need, maybe at some local ball fields, schools. If we can bring them there and we can do that legally, that shouldn't be a problem. We just need to make sure that the inmates that we utilize are not a risk inmate. It wouldn't be on the trustee list for a work release program. So I'm all about using the inmates for picking up debris and stuff on the highway, work release type stuff also.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Roberta?
Well, I'm definitely in favor of trustee labor. Not only does it keep the guys busy during the day, it's a benefit to the parish and the municipalities that we serve. No secret that finances are tight for the parish, for all the municipalities in Iberia Parish. So what better way is there than to utilize free labor? These guys don't want to sit up in that sale area all day and just lay there. They want to be constructive. Although most of them come in there on some kind of substance, once they're clean, they're just like you and I. They're just like you and I. And obviously classification is important to make sure that we have the right people out there and not people who are a detriment to society or you need to be worried about them in your neighborhoods. I absolutely plan to implement trustee programs.
Thank you. Mr. Joe?
That is so true. I had a Little League baseball teams where we had trustees with DWI programs and stuff. You know, they had 2 days' time, and then we take the other ones that's locked up that's not violent, and they would go around up there and fix the fields. And they would also, you know, they'd be utilized picking up trash on the side of the street. Well, it gives them something other than to sit up in jail and think about a way to break out. Give their mind something to do. And it gives them, what you could say, would be a good name for that. Workforce, because if we gotta get up in the morning and go to work, they're not gonna stay in that jail all day, sucking up air conditioning, because they're gonna wanna come back. You don't wanna beat them, because you can't do that. But you can make them work. You can make them work like we work, okay? And if we get up at 7, have to be to work for 7, then you get out your bunk at 7 and you go rake the yard or make a garden or do whatever you gotta do. But you're not gonna stay in that jail all day, because I don't want you to come back. I don't hate you, but I don't want you to come back.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Joe.
Okay.
Mr. Furness?
I'm sorry. Listen, let me say this. We all in favor of trustees, because I'm a big, should I say, opponent of trustees, because in hindsight, you put them to work, you allow them to learn a skill maybe they don't have or never, ever imagine they can have. And I would tell you this quick, and you asked me at what cost, let me say that, at the cost where as long as it doesn't affect the safety of our people of Iberia Parish. We want to make sure we are putting the right type of guys out there, performing these type of services. But there was a young man I know for sure that was a trustee. And somehow, some way, he learned electrician and plumbing as a trustee. And later on, when he was released from jail, he wound up owning his own business. So you see, sometimes what may seem like a small thing to us may be a life-changing event for others. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Myers?
I'm also in favor of trustee labor. From the information I've been provided, parish jails in our area is costing $31 to $33 a day to incarcerate an individual. The state only pays us $26.50. So why would I want to have an individual in a jail that's costing me $30, $32, but I'm only getting $26.50 to maintain him? It's a losing proposition. One of the ways we can adjust our costs is by providing that individual to a municipality, to the Little League ballpark. We can provide them to different nonprofit organizations where they can provide a service and make use of their self. Earlier it was said that a lot of the inmates don't want to just languish around the jail. And this is true. It's not a good thing. Devil's playground is idle hands. If you have 400 and something men sitting around the jail, they can come up with some devilment, believe me. And we just don't need to provide them with that service. The tough thing about providing inmate labor anywhere in our community is you have to make sure that that inmate labor is safe, It's not giving people ill feelings. Who would want inmate work crew at the elementary school while kids are in class? You know, that's not going to be received very well. Another thing you have to be very careful with is you can't allow whatever government entity you're dealing with to supplant employees with trustees.
Thank you, sir. To our next question, Ms. Roberta, you'll start with this one. Recidivism is high, as we know. What will you do to help reduce the number of repeat offenders returning to jail?
Well, I've mentioned it early on. We need to bring back the work release program. We need to implement day reporting, transitional center. We need to have reentry programs. The bottom line is, if you lock them up like animals, that's how they come out. God, we've talked about it for an hour now, or at least I have. It's so important that these guys, some guys who go in there are first-time offenders. They spend long periods of time waiting for their cases to get adjudicated, and they pick up bad habits. We need to change that line of thinking. The only way to do that is have good structured discipline in there and programs to change the mindset. Not everyone is salvageable. I'm a realist, I understand that. But I'm gonna tell you, if we don't attempt to try to change the vicious cycle, it's only gonna get worse.
Thank you, Ms. Roberta. Mr. Joe?
Yes, you have to change their mind, because if they get out without a trade or without something to do, they're gonna go back do the same thing that they did before, just to come back in here and get 3 squares and a place to lay their head. So no, we have a trade school, why not utilize it? They have also, you know, like we said earlier, you know, a GED program. Get them going on that. But you have to focus on training these inmates to be able to get a job when they get out. If not, they're gonna come back and see you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
Mr. Furness?
Like Ms. Roberta, I'm a big favor of the reentry program, but I'm also more concerned about what kind of evaluation are we conducting for these prisoners in jail. I would love to see us come up there, do some type of evaluation where we know what we're dealing with, and maybe offer the type of counseling that they need to help them when they come out in society. They can better, or should I say, be a better individual in society, where they won't return to jail. I too, you know, once worked in the jail, and I love the GED program. You'd be surprised how many young men you get in jail at 35 years old still reading on the first grade level. So now you want this guy who reads on the first grade level, and you think he's gonna come out in society and be a productive citizen? The only thing he knows is what crime. So I think once we can evaluate and meet his needs and maybe give him what he needs, whether it's medication or the proper counseling, then we could come there and produce a better individual for society.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Murphy?
I also believe we need to provide every individual in the parish jail with as much opportunity as we can, so that when he comes out, he can change his lifestyle. You know, increasing educational programs, increasing programs that'll teach individuals a trade where they never had none. Just psychological testing. A lot of our people that are incarcerated have mental issues. Maybe we can get them on the right kind of medicine and lead them on by that way. But the bottom line is, we have to understand, recidivism is a personal choice. They chose that life of crime. When we can provide them with the education, with the job skills, with the medication they need. But bottom line is, if he chooses to go back to a life of crime, there's nothing we can do to prevent that. You know, back in the Basic Police Academy in 1981, I was taught you can remove the opportunity to commit a crime, but you can't remove the desire to commit a crime. And that's true today. Recidivism is a problem that we have to face. We have to face it head on, and we're going to do everything we can to lead those individuals away from the criminal lifestyle that they have chosen. But ultimately, it's a decision the individual makes.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Romero?
Look, recidivism rate is bad. Some people are get put into the jail system because they're living in an environment or in a location or in a neighborhood that just keeps producing the same type of criminal. They want to go to jail, just they don't know any other lifestyle. We need to break that part of it up from the get-go. We need to try to get some of these people out of that environment by giving them some opportunities. If they get put into the jail system, it's hard for them. It's hard to keep them from not coming back in. It's like Mr. Mara said. They want to keep doing it. They have to have the will within themselves to keep themselves out of it. Now, if somebody's like an addict and they're got arrested and put in jail, that's a medical issue. I don't think that individual needs to be in that environment, not in the jail. They need to be in a different type of environment. So if you're an addict, that's a different issue. But if you're out there dealing drugs or committing a serious crime, you need to be in jail, locked up, and do your time.
Thank you, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost to the final stretch. This is our final question before closing comments. And Mr. Joe, we'll start with you. What is an issue that has not been raised tonight, or perhaps one that has been raised but you think needs more discussion, and what are your thoughts about it?
I would have to say that be in patrol, because we need to get our parish back the way it used to be when all of us up here were officers, working the beat, working with the community, respecting the community. That's what we have to do. That's the only way you're gonna make this work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Read the question again, Mr.
Yes,
Davis.
sir, absolutely, Mr. Martin. What is an issue that has not been raised tonight, or perhaps one that has been raised but you think needs more discussion, and what are your thoughts about it?
I would simply say youth. Look at the crime rate. Look at what happened just this weekend. We have more crimes being committed by young juveniles in Iberia Parish than ever. And I think it's very important that we identify. Now, I'd be the first to tell you, I come in contact with these kids for the last 12 years on a daily basis. Most of them I know by name. So I think it's important that we come up there and address this and hit this head on and try to find whatever resources we can possibly use to come there to save our youth and save our kids and to prevent this, this mass effect of this type of criminal activity going on in Iberia Parish. We have too many young juveniles committing these heinous crimes, and we are losing too many of our young kids to these type of crimes. That's one issue I would love to see us get back together and talk about.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Myers?
I don't believe we had any questions or discussion tonight that involved community involvement with the police. I believe that's an important issue. It's not a one-way street. It's not just the police against us and us against the police. We have to act together. We have to live together. We're all from here, right? We have to live together, and we all have to get along. Almost weekly, you see something in the newspaper where a kid at the Burger King drew a pig on a policeman's hamburger wrapping, where some waitress at whatever house it was or wherever decided she wasn't going to serve the police because she just didn't like the way their cars were colored. We see that weekly. You know, that's the kind of thing. Police work is a stressful enough job. We need to be able to get past these petty prejudices, both on our side and on the community side, and work together. And I believe that's a job not only for middle management, but for upper management. We need to engage ourselves with the community. You know, we have SROs now, school resource officers. Certainly that's a front line where the community can see us for what we are and become engaged with us and understand. You know, I put on my pants one leg at a time in the morning, just like you do. Without community involvement with the police, we're fighting a losing battle. It's a two-way street, and we need to seriously work on that.
Thank you, sir.
Would you say the question and repeat the question again?
Absolutely. What is an issue that has not been raised tonight, or perhaps one that has been raised but you think needs more discussion, and what are your thoughts about it?
Look, I have 15 years of narcotics experience. The troubles we have and what we're living in today, I'm telling you, the crime rate is the issue that we need to handle and get a hold of. The crime that we see in the elevated crime, let's say, it affects a lot of things. Businesses that want to come here to settle in New Iberia. Now listen, the New Iberia City Police Department's back. The people in New Iberia wanted it back. I think it's a great thing. When you see the chief of police out there with his guys, making stops, addressing the drug issue, you see businesses coming back. The sheriff's office needs to work with the city police department, and we need to keep driving that message. We need to keep hitting them one at a time. We need to get the drug issue under control so that we can lower the crime rate. When we lower the crime rate, the business is gonna wanna come back. When the businesses come back, your tax base goes back up. That's the issue we need to talk more about, because we all have issues that we want to address. I think that's the main issue Iberia suffers from, is the drug issue. I think we need to address that. Now, there's differences between an addict and a drug dealer. The addict needs some medical assistance to get off of the addiction. The person that's dealing the drug needs to be arrested, put in jail, and we need to get a hold of the drug problem. I'm serious.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. And finally, Ms. Roberta.
I think that what's important to the vicious crime cycle is we need early intervention in our elementary schools. One of the things I plan to do is that I want to set up little booths or desks, if you want to call them, in the common areas in the schools, where officers can go in and type reports if they need to type reports, and just kind of linger in there with the students so that they see an officer in a non-volatile situation. Most of the time when when children see an officer, it's not usually a good thing. It's mom and dad's fighting, it's an accident, it's something tragic that's happened. I think it's important that we build some sense of trust at an early age with the police officers and the deputies, because you can grow with that. And I think if we start in elementary school, that's a positive thing. I think we need to be in the Boys and Girls Club, getting to know the people there, in the community events, getting to know the people that, not just standing there working security, but get to know the people we serve. I think it's important we do that, because the end result is there's no better intel than a kid. They can't wait to tell a secret. Is that right? I mean, they really can't. My mama told me not to tell anybody, but let me tell you what happened. I mean, that's a great tool. And if you can build that relationship from a young age to an adult to an elderly person, that's just awesome.
Thank you, Ms. Roberta. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll start the closing comments. So we'll go in reverse order. So we're going to start with Mr. Tommy and go to your right, and we'll end it with Ms. Roberta. So you have 60 seconds for your closing comment. Mr. Tommy?
Listen, I think the difference between, I think we all want to do a good job. We all have Iberia's best interests at heart. We are in the parish of Iberia. Look, I sincerely and humbly ask for your vote on October 12th. I think the drug problem in Iberia is a major cause of the problems. That's what I believe. I can promise you this, that if I'm elected sheriff, we're gonna address that issue, the drug issue. So I sincerely ask for your vote on October 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Mr. Murphy?
I came here tonight and I spoke to you from my heart with honesty and sincerity. And I'm not running for sheriff for personal gain. I'm running because I know I'm the man that we need. I can provide the positive change. I can lead the sheriff's office in the direction that it needs to go from where we are now. I humbly ask for your support and your vote for Murphy Myers, number 91, to be the next Iberia Parish Sheriff. But if in your heart you can't see to support me, the important thing is you go vote. That's important and paramount on October 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Furness?
Again, we thank you for the opportunity to stand or sit before you today. But understand this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not running because no one asked me to run. I prayed on this 25 years ago, and I said, Lord, if at the age of 50 you present this opportunity, I would accept it. I'm simply running because I love this parish, but most of all, I love people. And I'm sick and tired of the crime rating we make in national news and every day having to bury a kid or cover a tarp. That young man on Friday night was my cousin. So it's getting closer and closer to home. If you want an effective leader, one that is efficient, one that's hard on crime, I'll be the first to tell you I am a no-nonsense guy when it comes to crime, but yet I'm compassionate for people. And finally, you want a God-fearing man, one that loves God? I'm your guy. And I will close with this. We can no longer accept the things we can change. We will simply change the things we can no longer accept. Vote Furnish Martin, October 12th. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. LeBlanc?
Okay. We have 5 good candidates up here tonight. And whichever one Iberia Parish lose is going to be a loser. If they could put us in each a corner, we'd have an awesome parish, but we know we can't do that. So what I suggest for the people to do is take the candidate's card and read through it and see how much law enforcement, how much they done for the community before. So that way you know if they help the youth, the elderly, or whoever. My number's number 89. And I want to thank you for getting me here tonight and talking to you. And I please ask for your support because Lord knows Joe want to be sheriff after his 7th time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. Ms. Roberta, your closing
Well, how
statement?
you come after that, huh? I'm on number 2, but I'm not going to 7. Thank y'all very much for taking the time out of y'all evening to come out here and listen to us and be informed voters. It makes me feel good to know that you care about our parish, just like every one of us up here. It's important you do your research. And what I want to leave you with is I want to say this simply. There's a lot of question about what qualifies a person to be sheriff and what qualifies a person as law enforcement experience. When you get up there in that booth and you elect a sheriff to lead people and manage a budget. You don't elect a sheriff to go out there and do SWAT, bust down doors, and execute arrest. You hire that person by electing him or her, me, to lead people and manage a budget. So please remember that. My name is Roberta Boudreaux, and I respectfully ask that you consider me for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we certainly appreciate the time and effort put forth by the candidates here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause. Well, this concludes the 2019 Greater Iberia Chamber of Commerce Political Forum Series. Again, we wish all the candidates well and want to encourage all registered voters to exercise your right to vote in this upcoming election. Please be sure to spread the word about the forum posting on YouTube. Travel safely home. May God bless every one of y'all.